So social media is something you can't run away from. You can't. You got to be careful with the type, and this goes into recruiting now because social media has been a part of our lives for a little over a decade now. So that means the recruits that we are recruiting right now have lived almost their entire life with Twitter, with
Yeah.
Instagram, with all type of social medias. And you can go take a deep dive in who this prospect is, who this recruit is. So you need to know who you're bringing into your program before they put pen to paper and throw that you up. You'll know who they really are.
Yeah. Are you against the idea of like banning social media during the season?
Yes, because I think once you start, now you add something to it. It's kind of like cursing, for example. When you're younger and you're with your friends, it's like you used to curse like a sailor, man. But then there were those kids whose parents or uncles used to let them curse, and then it became not so much of a big deal to them. It's like if
Yeah.
you want to use those terms, you use them. Understand what you're saying and understand what you mean when you say certain things, and be careful with it out of respect around us. When it comes to social media, it's like if I tell you, if I force you, no, you can't do that. That's only going to make certain players rebel. That's only going to make certain players want to do it more. So
Yeah.
just give them the information and understand what they're doing and the power that they have. I think that is what the key is. I remember Miami, I think it was Coach Diaz's first year. They had a guy come in and speak to them about the importance of branding and the importance of social media, good and bad. That's huge. That's what you have to do because you can't force it the opposite way, especially when you got coaches in the Miami Hurricanes football program and all these other programs on Twitter every single day. No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I respect that.
that's a very, very good point. I mean, our head coach was tweeting all the time his first year. But that's beside the point. Let's get back to Green Tree. I have a few questions. So someone on State of the U wrote an article today. It wasn't me, but I want to ask you about it. It says, does Manny Diaz have a seniority problem at Miami?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about that.
1000% he has a seniority problem.
Oh,
And that's what's messed our program up.
Hey, I couldn't agree more with you. I couldn't. I'm glad you agree. But yeah,
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about that.
Scott Patchen over Gregory Rousseau. Are you crazy? That doesn't make any sense. But he did it.
Hey,
Okay,
that's
now linebacker, we've under recruited, underdeveloped linebacker for since Denzel Perryman graduated. So I can't blame that on any specific seniority. Wide receiver, the 2020 season.
Yep.
And Marsh, you know I'm a six guy for life. I love him. Okay, but I give you one game in specific. If you bench Pope and Wiggins at halftime, Miami wins against Oklahoma State by 14.
You might,
Because
yeah.
Keyshawn is not dropping that. Restrepo, I don't know if he was healthy or not, because I know they had COVID issues with the younger guys at one point. I don't even know if he was at that game. But you pull them off and you put them on the bench, with both of them having 6 drop passes in that game alone, get them out. Get them out. Miami goes on this long run, fighting back in the game, and it comes down to these dudes that can't freaking catch the football. Why are they still on the football field? Seniority.
Do you think Mark Pope has a starting spot when we open against Alabama?
No.
Yeah.
No, you don't think he's starting?
No, unfortunately, and I'm not here to give up on young men, but eventually, now that you have a whole spring, you also will be going into a training camp. I think it'll be more of he'll go to the slot maybe, but if he does start, it'll be in the slot. It won't be a starting wide receiver at the University of Miami anymore.
Okay.
So if he starts at the slot, where do you put Harley?
That's why I said if he starts for Miami, read between the lines of what I'm saying. If he starts at Miami, it would have to be in the slot.
So my starting receivers right now, it's Charleston Rambo, Mike Harley, and then I'm torn between I want to say Keyshawn Smith, I really do, but I feel like Mark Pope is going to start. Who would your 3 be?
Give me Keyshawn as our X.
Mm-hmm.
Harley in the slot and Rambo on the outside and on the other. Now the fourth slot, if we were to go 2 slot, I think that'll be Pope. If it's fair, that'll be Restrepo and it won't be a question. Yeah. If it's fair. But I don't know if Coach Diaz has completely got the seniority out of his system. I don't know.
So I would you expound on that, because you're like trying to get into coaching, right? So help us to understand what would possess Coach Diaz to do things like that, to push the seniority narrative, because it seems so illogical to me and probably everyone else.
So what happens a lot when you sit in these meetings and you have these conversations, trust is such a huge factor. And trust comes from a buildup of a lot of different stuff, guys, a lot of different stuff. There's weekly tests. There's these walkthroughs that you go through. I mean, you have your offensive test, your defensive test. A head coach may walk in and say, hey, Coach so-and-so just implemented this blitz. I want you to stand up and write down this whole blitz. And that'll even go into your plus and minus for that week. Okay, grading systems go all different type of ways. Like Coach Diaz talks about with morning weights and going to class and that STAR system, that stuff plays a role in a lot of things. And when you have a coach who really relies on experience, really relies on people who buy into his system, really relies on people who he can trust, all that screams older players. It doesn't scream the best player, because the best player might be a true freshman who's 18 years old. But coach doesn't know if he can trust him just yet because he doesn't know the entire playbook. I mean, have you heard of Avery Huff, or is he off the roster? Okay?
Yeah.
These are the type of things I'm talking about that happen in programs every single year. There's a young man who's way better, way faster, way quicker. But just because he doesn't know that coach wants us to have this check on third down when it comes to this 2x2 set on this down and distance on this side of the field at this time of the game, then he doesn't start. Or he doesn't contribute as much as he should because he doesn't check off the marks that coaches want. That stuff happens way too often. I'm telling you, way too often. I feel little intricacies happen in these meeting rooms that don't translate to true football that get put into why a player is in a certain spot on the depth chart.
I feel like Alabama plays a lot more younger guys than most blue chip programs, and I don't know why people aren't thinking about that. You know, I don't know why other coaches don't look around and be like, well, you know, why is Alabama starting more freshmen than we are?
Well, that's a two-tone answer. The first one I would say, they have the best coaches mixed with the best players.
Yeah.
So obviously this young man is probably he walks in as a freshman, he's a third-round pick at worst. By the time he leaves, he either creeps to the fourth or he's a first-rounder. Okay, that's number one. So you got the best players and the best coaches. Number two, they have such an elite turnover. That's why they have to play so many young players. It's because they lose 20-some-odd guys to the top 75 picks in the NFL draft every year. So that's why they train their freshmen so much, because they know you're not going to touch the field year 3, year 4. You're probably going to touch the field here a little bit late in year 1. You're going to contribute in year 2, and you're going to start in year 3 because the guys ahead of you have already departed. I mean, redshirting is null and void anymore. So these young men, that's why you're seeing more true juniors enter the NFL draft, more redshirt sophomores enter the NFL draft, because they're getting prepared at the highest level. At 20, they're ready to hit the NFL. And the NFL loves that, because now I get to give you a 5-year contract instead of a 4-year contract and spread that money a little further.
Okay, so I have a question. It was about an article I wrote yesterday. I know there's been a lot of talk about the Canes defense and how poorly, we ended last year on. And but I think that this defense is going to be improved for a number of reasons. Manny Diaz calling the defense again. Bob Shoop as an analyst. I love the hire of T-Rob. What are your thoughts on the defense as a whole? Do you think that we will see improvement on that end because of these guys?
My simple answer to that, Marsh, is hell yeah. Obviously, I think there's going to be a huge influx because of the simple fact that now you're going to get different ways to skin a cat and a lot more experience in those meetings rooms. Now, let's take, for example, look at Tyreek Stevenson. He gives up that play versus Harley, right? You guys know the highlight I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
When's the last time you've seen a Miami Hurricanes corner look and attack the football? Although he missed it, and it turned out to be a touchdown catch by Harley. When was the last time you seen one of our corners go up and attack a freaking football at the highest point like that?
It's been a minute.
Try.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
I mean, Mike Jackson tried it and it didn't always work out for him.
Yeah.
But it was the best technique. It's the most modern. It's what matters right now. You got to get the freaking football. PBUs don't get you drafted. Interceptions do. The only way to get interceptions is go at the football. Unless you're in trail technique, then you get what Coach Efren Bandner was trying to teach and forced Coach Mike Rumpf to teach was the eyes and hands. That happens when you're in trail technique because you're already beat. Because now you're taking a chance going after the football and you're going to give up a touchdown, as opposed to you swatting and raking out a hand when someone's already caught the ball.
Yeah.
All right. But the rest of that defense, I can see it taking some big jumps up. The linebacker will still always be a question for me.
Yeah.
Mainly because who's still coaching them?
Yeah.
Diaz.
Yep. And Coach Peck, he's going to be helping him out on that as well.
Now, I really like Coach Packy. I'm one of those people that give him his flowers while he's still here. Because that's a young man 5-10 years from now. I promise you he's a pretty big-time DC.
Interesting.
Remember I said that.
Okay.
His intricacies, he's such a good person, too. Recruits love him. He's pretty good, man. He's pretty good. Look at our special teams and look at how Stryker has played over the last 2 years. Are there many complaints you could say?
No, I mean that's a fair point, man. I mean, there's a lot of different narratives you could push. Some people, myself included, at various points have pushed the fact that he received finished products from the transfer portal as far as special teams. But I mean, you're right. I'm also a guy who's predicting Gilbert Frierson to be the best player on our defense next year.
Come on, somebody, you preaching now. But that goes more to my point. That's also featuring Packy. He was their coach. He only had 2 or 3 guys. If you add Avery Huff, that's the third one, who's been swinging back and forth between striker and linebacker because he can't put on weight.
Yep.
And to me, we can't keep forcing players to put on weight super fast. Everyone's genetics are a little different. All right, it's going to take him some time. It's year 3. He's pushing 220. We don't need him to be 235 year 3 already. Let's give us some time. Anyway, special teams, he split between a couple GAs and assistant coaches.
Were you surprised that Packy switched to coaching linebackers because he had been doing such a good job at strikers with Romeo and then Gilbert?
No. Here's why. Because strikers are a part of both coverage and run fits, which is exactly what weak side and strong side linebackers are. Okay, so he basically was coaching strong side linebacker. Now he's just going to be coaching both weak side and middle. So hopefully that means we're going to get some pretty good coverage out of these guys. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Do you think that this is finally the year we see Sam Brooks break out at linebacker? Because I'm very, very big on Sam Brooks. I have been since he came out of Northwestern. Do you feel, I mean, I know he switched to linebacker because I know he kind of played more kind of an edge rusher in high school. What are your thoughts on him?
I really like Sam Brooks, and I think we're doing him such a disservice. He's 2 inches shorter than Chance Williams. All right. I mean, he's probably the same height, if not an inch shorter than Trent Harris.